Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger and my friends. Today I want to talk about guest characters in fighting games. I've been on record that I think guest characters add a lot of value to fighting games. They spice up the roster, they add gameplay elements you might not otherwise ever find in the game, and they bring in players that would never play the game otherwise. And that's perhaps one of the best things about a guest character is they bring in an all-new audience to a game. And frankly, the concept is just plain fun. It's interesting to see guest characters show up, right? I remember the first time I saw that Freddy Krueger was going to be in Mortal Kombat 9. I was like, wow, what a concept. Sometimes, like Freddy, the guest character is so overpowered, you'll always remember him. And sometimes, like, say, other games like Soul Calibur 4 or someone like Yoda, they're so stupid and changed how the game worked in such a weirdly fundamental way that you could just never forget them. So, in short, I like guest characters, and that kind of prompts this video, as there's quite a few characters, I think, just in gaming in general, that would highly benefit from being a guest character. Both in that it would be a good addition to whatever games they wind up in, and that it would just be plain fun. So some of these choices here are just purely for the fun factor, and some of them, honestly, I think are an inevitability. They will eventually find their way into a fighting game. So that said, let's go to our first character. So our first potential guest character I think would make a great addition to a fighting game would be Tifa Lockhart. So Tifa is hardly short of requests to be in fighters. No particular shade at Dissidia, but people have been wanting to see Tifa in a quote-unquote real fighting game. When it comes to fighting chops, Tifa, it's no problem. She is herself a martial artist, and I feel like specifically in the recent Final Fantasy VII remake, they made her character in such a way that everything flows from one move to another so well, so fluidly, that it just makes perfect sense for a fighting game. Like, she is the most complex character in Final Fantasy VII remake, and the way she fights is a big part of it. So moveset wise, that's the easiest thing in the world. You are not hurting for a potential moveset. Everything you could want, it's all there. And it's expansive enough, say, if you want to go into, say, 3D fighting realm, you definitely have enough moves to back it up. Where am I going with this? Well, hint, hint. It's not like Final Fantasy characters have not already been guest in major fighting game titles. Specifically, we have Noctis appearing as a guest DLC character in Tekken 7. Incredibly well realized and very faithfully translated to the game, even if his fighting style kind of doesn't quite jar with the rest of the Tekken characters, but he works out great. And you know what? Tifa is a character that would absolutely gel in Tekken game. We've already done the Final Fantasy thing, it already works. And then with Tifa, we have a character that kind of fits in the game better, and oh boy, would she ever sell. I can pretty much guarantee you that Tifa would be the best-selling Tekken DLC of all time. She fits every bill, she fits every criteria, everything you could ever want in a fighting game character she will easily represent, and her playstyle is obvious. It would just work. It's basically a home run waiting to happen. It's just a matter of, does Square Enix want to make some easy money licensing her out to a fighting game? And of course, naturally, with what we just said, Tekken 8 would probably be the best place for her, if anywhere would be. So I submit for your approval that Tifa should absolutely be a guest character in a fighting game. The next character that should be a guest in fighting games is the Dragon of Dojima, Kazuma Kiryu, requested for years and years and years. As for him having the chops to be a fighting game character, over all the games, over all the years, he's developed a moveset that would make most fighting game characters blush, to be honest. You can take some of the characters in fighting game history with some of the biggest and most bloated movesets, and Kiryu would have that many moves to match and all the more just yet. You would have to cut it down, if anything, or make him the most complicated stance character of all time, because he's got so much to work with over the years. His pedigree as a potential fighting game character cannot be questioned, simple as that. It's just a matter of what game would he go in. I know a lot of people would say Tekken, and to that I would say no, absolutely not. As you may well know, Yakuza is a Sega property, and even though there hasn't been a new entry in some years, there is definitely a Sega fighting game, and that is Virtua Fighter. Point of fact, you can play many different editions of Virtua Fighter over the years inside of the Yakuza games. Depending on which Yakuza game you're playing, they're all set in different timelines, so it's the Virtua Fighter appropriate for the timeline, but really it's as simple as you go to the arcade, you pop in a couple $100, and boom, you're playing an arcade-perfect version of Virtua Fighter. For a good while, if you wanted to play Virtua Fighter 5 at a tournament, it was actually the easiest to bring a PlayStation 4 with Yakuza on it so you could boot up via 5. Thankfully, Ultimate Showdown changed that up a bit. And speaking of Ultimate Showdown, they added Yakuza costumes for everyone in the game, and they're very faithful to the original cast within limits, because, you know, Akira still has to have his silly hair and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you want to look like Kiryu, the option is there. If you want to look like Majima, who is another character, honestly, that would perfectly fit as a fighting game character, the option is there. If you want to look like Ichiban from Yakuza Like a Dragon, the option is there. So the Yakuza world and the Virtua Fighter world are very linked, and as far as Virtua Fighter's playstyle goes, he would also just be an incredible fit. The only issue, if there was to be one, is he simply has so many options. Does he have the perfect all-rounder martial art moveset? Yeah, he does. He also has a speedster moveset. He also has a pure powerhouse moveset. He's got basically stuff for every possible occasion. So if you were to make him a character, either you make him a best of, you make him like a triple stance character, which, you know what, Vanessa in Virtua Fighter is a double stance character with 200 plus movesets, so it's not like it hasn't been done before. Or you do it like a Jackie Chan Fist of Fire thing and you make him multiple characters. But regardless, for countless reasons, Kazuma Kiryu is just absolutely one of the best examples of what a possible fighting game guest character could be. It's heavily rumored Virtua Fighter will be coming back, Virtua Fighter 6, and I can't think of a better fit for a guest character than Kiryu. The character whose games franchise is what kind of has been keeping Virtua Fighter alive over these years by constantly showcasing it in the games. It'd be a match made in heaven if he himself showed up in Virtua Fighter itself. Thus, I submit to you, Kazuma Kiryu should be a fighting game guest character. Now, here's one I feel just falls under the rule of cool. Aloy from the Horizon franchise should absolutely be a fighting game guest character. When it comes to those Sony first-party characters, fighting games have been a good fit, let's put it that way, because we have Kratos. Kratos made a pretty good fighting game character, so much so that he appeared in 3 different franchises: PlayStation All-Stars, Mortal Kombat, and Soul Calibur. And why did he work so well in those games? Because he has a big arsenal. And you know what? So does Aloy. Obviously, fighting game wise, it's not too difficult to have some imagination to come up with a moveset using a bow and arrow and a spear, sure. But she has exploding javelins. She's got, like, in Horizon Forbidden West, like friggin' laser rifles and stuff like that. Bolas, slings, explosives, camo, you can turn invisible. Aloy has so many tools to work with that it makes someone like Rambo look completely unprepared for what's going on. And lots of options make for a fun and interesting fighting game character. And also, just even personality-wise, Aloy is hyper-confident. One of the few video game characters that doesn't try to downplay how good she is. She knows that she's the shit. And that's one of the reasons why I really like the character. And honestly, if only for these reasons alone, I think that's exactly why she would make a perfectly fine fighting game character. The only issue is, what game would you put her in? And for me, I think her best fit actually would be in Killer Instinct, which is absolutely the game where she would not show up, as that is a Microsoft-owned property, and your Sony exclusive character more than likely isn't showing up in the Microsoft fighting game. A new Killer Instinct is rumored in development by Bandai Namco, as in Microsoft is having Bandai Namco develop the game, but it still remains Microsoft, so that's probably not a safe fit. Still, honestly, any game would be lucky to have her. She would make an absolutely fantastic and fun and interesting fighting game character. She has tons of tools, and it would just be a blast to play her in a fighter. Now, the next one isn't any one specific person, but it's long overdue. And that's just any kind of wrestler. Wrestlers, well, I don't gotta tell you, man, wrestlers have pretty good movesets, right? And they have larger-than-life personalities. Those are the 2 things you need for a fighting game, and they haven't really shown up. You know, yes, every fighting game has its wrestler character, yes, but there's so many famous wrestlers over the years, like, say, a John Cena, that would make a perfect fit for a fighting game. So much so that the King of Fighters mobile game added a bunch of WWE wrestlers to it, and it was one of the most brilliant things they ever did. Ever wanted to see The Undertaker chokeslam Orochi, one of the most famous bosses in fighting game history? There you go. How about give him the Tombstone Pile Driver? Now, of course, you don't want just any wrestler, right? You don't want like Bo Dallas or Griff Garrison showing up in your fighting game, but truly iconic people like The Undertaker, like a Randy Savage, like Sting, something like that. These are characters you could put in and could have a long shelf life in a fighting game as a guest. AEW even has an official licensing agreement with Street Fighter for a line of merchandise they did a little while back. So, you know, that's been on the table before, Capcom and AEW, so who knows, but I'm just saying it's long overdue that we get a proper wrestler of, you know, worldwide repute and fame into a fighting game. Last up, this is one of those ones where I feel it's an inevitability. This will happen, it's just a matter of what game and when is it gonna go down. The Doom Slayer, aka Doom Guy. Now, what game, when is it going to go down? Mortal Kombat 12 is a pretty safe bet if it's ever going to be any one game. Even Ed Boon has acknowledged publicly that the Doom Guy is definitely a well-requested character for Mortal Kombat. And as far as NRS games go, big guns, chainsaws, swords, all this kind of stuff. This is well represented in those series of games NRS makes in Mortal Kombat and Injustice, and it's an easy fit if there ever was one to make. No one could ever accuse the Doom Guy of all people for a lack of variety in ways to hurt other people. When we talk about, say, the Arsenal, as we mentioned earlier in the video, when it comes to the Arsenal, Doom Guy has the Arsenal. It is not a figure of speech here, it is quite literal. Quarter circle forward punch for shotgun, double quarter circle forward punch for super shotgun. Like, you have so many potential options for a moveset for this character because the amount of firepower he can put out is absolutely absurd. And once again, probably why he'd be a pretty good fit for a NetherRealm Studios kind of game, as they are well versed with characters and fighters with like guns and stuff, right? You know, you won't see someone with a gun in Street Fighter. But in Mortal Kombat or Injustice, yeah, you would, and they probably would play pretty well. Once again, Doom Guy, I think it's just a matter of time. It's simply a matter of which franchise will be lucky to get him as a playable character. Doom is a very storied franchise, to say the least, and the Doom Guy as a character in a game outside of Doom would be very, very fun and interesting. And those are some of my thoughts on the matter. Once again, I think guest characters are just a great value add to any fighting game. You know, don't get rid of that base roster. The base roster is probably the reason you're playing whatever fighting game you're playing to begin with, but a guest adds a lot of spice and variety, and I'm always a big fan of that. Now, obviously, there's a lot of characters that could be guest characters in fighting games. I only mentioned just a small fraction. So if you got someone you would like to see in a fighter, post it in the comments below. Why do you think they should be in a fighter? And also, do you think there's a specific game they would be a best fit? Well, hey, post it, let us know. We are on the precipice of entering a new era of fighting games here in 2023 and beyond, and a lot of the games coming up got a lot of potential for guest characters to show up, and you know what? They just might. So that all said, well, that is the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some fighting games.